do some people change while others stay stuck? Same church, same Bible, same opportunities. Yet one person grows stronger, wiser, freer, even more alive, while another slowly drifts, struggles, just dries up spiritually. You've seen it. Maybe you've lived it. Two people can hear the same message, sit in the same room, and respond completely differently. So what makes the difference? That's what this series is about. Welcome to Rooted. I'm Dan Holland, and over the next 12 episodes, we're going to talk honestly about how transformation actually happens. Not so much about behavior management. We're not trying harder or pretending better, but real transformation. Now, throughout this series, we're going to use one simple picture, that of a tree. See, healthy trees grow in two directions at the same time, down into roots and up into the fruit. And what's happening beneath the surface eventually determines what appears above it. In fact, most people try to change their lives by fixing visible behavior, right? While ignoring invisible roots. We just try harder, we promise more, set goals, create rules, modify appearances, but Jesus didn't come to merely improve behavior. He came to transform lives from the inside out. And as I said, transformation is not completely about behavior management. Transformation starts and is sustained by how you think. You see, thoughts lead to actions, and actions lead to habits. Habits shape character, and character, well, that shapes destiny, which means the life you are becoming is already being formed right now from the roots up. And healthy roots produce healthy lives. And if the roots never develop properly, eventually you'll know, because testing, trouble, pressure, and persecution will expose the weakness. Nobody accidentally drifts into a strong life. Strong lives are cultivated. And who we are becoming is often connected to who and what we stay connected to. For example, Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7 says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." That verse is both sobering and hopeful. Sobering because our thoughts are literally shaping us every day, whether we realize it or not. Hopeful because if the mind can be renewed, well, then life can change. We are literally what we think. And then Proverbs 4:23 says, "Guard your heart, for everything flows from it." And not some things, everything. What you say, what you do, how you react, where you go, everything flows downstream from what is happening internally. And that's either true or it's not. And finally, Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I want you to notice the word transformed. Again, let me say, God isn't merely interested in behavior modification. He wants renewal, transformation, deep change, root level change. This isn't try harder Christianity. It doesn't say be transformed by trying harder. Nope. It starts in the mind. All right, Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3 says, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither, whatever they do prospers." Notice the progression. Walk, stand, sit. See, nobody usually ends up spiritually stuck just overnight. It happens gradually. A thought becomes a step becomes a pattern that becomes a way of life. What we find out is that both growth and decay start with where you're planted. If you're trusting God, you become stable, nourished, fruitful, and alive. If you're planted near unhealthy influences, well, then eventually you just dry up. Whenever you first plant shrubs, you have to water them every day for several weeks. Then every other day for several more weeks after that. Why? Because the roots are being established beneath the surface. Now, at first, you may not see much happening above ground, but something critical is happening beneath the surface. And if the roots never develop properly, eventually, well, heat, drought, or storms are going to expose the weakness. The same thing is true, and it happens spiritually. In fact, if someone says, I'm not growing spiritually, Jesus would probably diagnose the problem differently, I'm guessing, than we do. See, most people focus on symptoms. I keep struggling. I keep failing. I feel distant from God. I just can't seem to change. But symptoms are not root causes. Jesus told a very interesting parable in Matthew 13, Mark 4, and Luke 8 about 4 kinds of soil. The seed in this story represented the Word of God, and the soils represented the condition of the heart. So hard soil just rejected the Word completely, and that was that. And at the other extreme, your good soil produces a crop. But then Jesus described 2 other conditions that are far more dangerous because they look alive at first. Okay, there's the rocky soil and the thorny soil. Let's talk about the rocky soil. It receives the Word with joy, but the roots never go down deep. Now, these people are excited. They feel huge emotions, but when testing, trouble, pressure, or persecution comes, Jesus said, the plant withers because there are no deep roots holding it steady. Some people love what God gives them, but never develop deep dependence on God Himself. And then Jesus described the thorny soil. Now, this soil actually grows something. There are roots, there is life, but eventually the growth is choked out by, Jesus said, worries, riches, distractions, pleasures, ambition, and divided priorities. The issue isn't rejection of God, it's overcrowding. There's too many competing roots beneath the surface, too many weeds pulling life away from what matters most. And honestly, that describes many people today. We are busy, distracted, overstimulated, overcommitted, guilty, constantly connected, but spiritually depleted. We live in a world full of noise, hurry, comparison, entertainment, pressure, fear, and performance. And then we wonder why our souls feel dry. That's why this series is not about self-improvement. This is not try harder Christianity. Jesus didn't come merely to make bad people behave better. He came to bring dead things to life. Transformation isn't behavior management. Hope you're getting that. Real transformation happens from the inside, from the roots up. And next time, we'll go deeper beneath the surface and talk about identity, because you cannot consistently live differently until you understand who you really are. So here's one simple step this week. How about doing a root check? Slow down long enough to ask yourself, what am I consistently taking in? Is it feeding life into me or draining it? Then make one intentional adjustment, just one voice to add that you listen to, one unhealthy influence that you're going to reduce. Don't try to change everything overnight. Just move toward better soil. Because healthy growth, well, that starts with where you're planted.